everyone, welcome to my productivity report for June 2024. It was quite an eventful summer, and today we're going to get into part one of that, the full month of June, where I spent most of my time in Los Angeles. So let's get started. First of all, if you're new here, welcome to my channel. My name is Caroline and I'm an organizing and productivity coach, and I do these productivity reports monthly as a way for me to showcase how I set my goals, how I meet my goals, and what the bumps in the road are, so that you might have some takeaways from that and learn something alongside of me. And it's inspired by income reports that I've read over the years from a lot of my content creating colleagues. I found it so interesting to read all of their reports on what they were doing, how they were doing it, how much money they made, how much they took away from it, what services they used, and all of that, just to kind of get an inside behind the scenes glimpse of their business. So I decided to do that for my own, but because I'm not a financial genius and I am a productivity coach, I thought it would be a lot more fun if I talk about goal setting and meeting your goals and tracking your time and doing all of those things that we're supposed to know how to do, but not necessarily is taught to us, right? So that's why I published this monthly report. I've been doing it now for a good 8-9 months or so. So if you hop on over to my blog at theswedishorganizer.com, you can find all of them there. I'll be sure to link to them underneath so that you can read and watch them as well. I do a full blog post and then I do a YouTube sort of summary of it. So it's been super fun so far, and actually it's been keeping me on track a lot better. So I'm really enjoying myself doing these videos, and I thank you for watching. But let's get into June now. It was a whirlwind month. I had so much fun, but there were some unexpected things that happened. So going into June, first of all, if you haven't been up to what I've been doing in the past, I was actually a little fatigued because I have been traveling so much this spring. I went to London, I went to Honolulu, I went to Copenhagen and Stockholm. So the jet lag had really started to set in. I was getting a little bit tired of being on the road, even though it's so much fun. I'm not complaining. I love it. But switching and hopping between so many time zones can be a little bit tricky. So at first I was thinking, should I really go to California? And then I kind of felt it in my gut that yes, I have to go. And I can't really explain it except to say that it was intuition that said I have to go. Regardless of how tired I am, I need to make this trip happen. And so I did. And that's why this entire month is dedicated to that little voice inside that just tells you what to do next. My intuition has long been the main factor in how I make decisions, for good or bad. Has it gotten me in trouble sometimes? Yes. But it has also gotten me, like I said, to where I am today, and I wouldn't change anything for it. So I listen to my intuition all the time, and those who are close to me know that I will often tell them something like, oh, I have a feeling this is going to happen, or whatever, this is going to happen, and they ask me afterwards, like, did that happen? And I'll say, yeah, it did. It's exactly how I thought it would go. So that's how I knew that I had to go to California. I could just sense that this was going to be one of those life-changing trips that I would one day look back on and go, wow, that was a real pivot point for me. And now that I'm back, you'll hear more about July next month's productivity report, but I can already say that it absolutely was life-changing. There's no question about it. I reconnected with so many people I hadn't seen in years, and I'm talking years and years and years. And I also made some really amazing new friends that I know are going to be a part of my story going forward. So I know that going was the right decision, and I knew it before I was going to go. So I'm so glad that I made the decision, that despite my fatigue and being a little bit tired from traveling, I actually made it happen. I do not regret it one bit. Getting out of your element like that is usually what helps you grow as a person, even though sometimes it goes completely against common sense. Did I know this was going to be an expensive summer? Of course. Was I going to miss my family? Yes, of course. I knew I wasn't going to get nearly enough sleep. compared to what I'm used to. But I didn't care. It didn't matter. I met so many incredible people on this trip. And the funny thing is that when I asked them, what was the thing that you did to get you to where you are today? The resounding answer was, I just listened to that little voice inside. Something told me to take that job, to go to that place, to talk to this person, to do that. Every single person, okay? And that, to me, was such a good takeaway that now this entire productivity report is dedicated to that little voice. I met people on this trip that I never thought I would get the chance to meet in real life. I mean, I'm talking heroes of mine from when I was a kid. Thank you to all of you. You know who you are, and all of your advice was so incredibly helpful and just sort of reaffirmed what I already knew, is that when I make good decisions, it's actually a balance of both head and heart. And that is what I teach in my program, Mindful Monday Mapping. That program is all about, as a CEO, how do you create a shorter work week? How do you balance life with work? And how do you manage your projects in a way that's nurturing instead of stressful? And what we talk about a lot in that course is good decision making. And my entire framework is built on the fact that you do deep dives with facts, and you look at the stats, and you look at the data, and you analyze that data, and you understand what it's telling you. But then you also switch over into reflection mode, and you go, well, wait a minute. Even though the stats are telling me this thing, is my gut telling me something else? Like, what needs to happen next? And the way we get to really good decisions is that we consider both equally. We don't just ignore half of the puzzle, right? So for those who make decisions only purely based on the facts on the paper, sometimes that just doesn't lead you down the right road, right? Because you're totally ignoring your wants versus, honoring your needs. And I get that. At the same time, you can't do the opposite either. You can't just go with what you want and not look at what needs to happen. So it's a fine balance to achieve, but I feel like my framework that I've come up with is so efficient in getting you to the right decision that I'm so excited about it. So absolutely, there has to be a 50-50 split. I truly, truly believe that. And being in balance like that, obviously it's a very Swedish thing, but it's something that I really, really cherish. So I think that intuition plays such a big part in knowing what to do next that you just can't ignore it. And what you have to ask yourself is, what is the cost of not taking that risk that I'm thinking about, right? So often we're so worried that it's going to go in the wrong direction. What if it goes in the right direction, right? What if you get everything you've ever wanted? That's possible. I'm telling you that's possible. So just think about that. It's amazing how many times the long-term benefits of taking a risk outweigh the short-term costs of doing something. So I'll leave you with that, and I'll just invite you to share your thoughts in the comments. I would love to know how you make decisions. Do you go only with your head? Do you go only with your heart? How do you think about what you're going to do next in life and in business? And what are some pros and cons of that decision-making skill that you have? So I'd love to know. Please leave me a comment and let me know how you do things. It's always fun to read and hear your ideas. Okay, let's now jump into how productive I was in June. I can say it was not one of my more productive months in terms of projects, but it was actually huge in terms of decision making, as you can tell, and in terms of recovery for myself and recharge. So I did put in the hours. We'll get to that in a bit, but some of the projects that I'm currently working on are much longer. They're multi-layered. And they're going to take a lot longer than a month to complete. So again, normally what I do is I go with shorter, smaller projects. For the ones that I'm running right now, it didn't really make sense to do that. So they are longer and they have more phases to them, and it just has a very stretched out timeline. If you're not sure about how multi-layered projects work, again, hop over to the blog or reach out and I'm happy to explain that to you. I don't have time to do that in this video, but just know that they're a lot more complicated. So this month, purposefully, I focused on just having fun. Catching up with people, doing activities like music, recording, writing, and just talking to people, networking. And that, I think, in hindsight, is going to prove, again, extremely useful and extremely productive. So I didn't perhaps complete, a ton of projects per se, but what I did is set in motion things that are going to have long-term ROI. And one of those things that I want to highlight is that I took out the free trial for our quarterly planning workshop. So for those of you who don't know, we offer quarterly planning as a subscription. We have it 4 times a year for business owners. You can be from anywhere and you can join us to do your quarterly planning in a group setting. We do that live over Zoom, and it's a very, very productive few hours. We really audit what's been going on, we set new goals, and we figure out exactly what needs to happen next for you to completely crush the next season in business. And it is a great value. It's $250 per session or $1,000 per year to participate. And we have people on a membership subscription basically, and they come back again and again for the next 3 months. So what we've had in the past is we've had a 90-day free trial on that, so that people could just kind of sign up one time and be a part of a workshop and see how they like it and see what results they get from it. And I wanted to do that just as an introduction for people who aren't used to doing quarterly planning or planning at all, just to kind of for them to feel the transformation of just how much difference that makes. But unfortunately, we've had so many problems with that free trial that I felt like it was just going to be a headache going into the future. So that 90-day free trial is now a thing of the past. We've had so many problems with people misunderstanding how it works, with people not remembering that they signed up, with people just abusing it blatantly, and it was just time for us to let it go. So that's one of those big things that I decided to do, and it kind of goes back to one of the principles that I value in my business, which is to fail fast. Meaning that if you see that something's not working, fix it, and fix it fast. Fix it now, right away. And then that compounding effect actually starts to go in the right direction instead. So I actually calculated this, and I have the stats right in front of me here so I can tell you what that would look like. So during the past year, when we had this free trial in place, we had 46 hours of admin work from problems with it. So imagine, people are signing up, they're taking a part of this free trial, and then either having issues with it, not getting the subscription right, or not understanding it, or just abusing it, or whatever. All those admin hours that we had to deal with that free trial clocked in at 46 hours. Now, if you translate that into money, that is $23,000 worth as a loss. And that is something I am not willing to accept. Okay? So now that I've made that change, I'm going to assume that that admin time is now a thing of the past. And basically what I've done is buy myself that amount of money back in time. So think about how that is now going to change the direction of my income for the next few years, right? I mean, it's huge. Small little tweaks like that compounds incredibly over time. So that's long-term planning that you have to think about. If I had kept that trial in place for another year, we might have been at 100 hours and over $50,000 of a loss. That is not something I'm willing to accept, but we fixed it fast. We saw that it wasn't working. It was causing a lot more trouble than it was worth, and we got rid of it. So again, it's kind of a shame because I did want to offer it just for people to feel the impact of planning, but it is such a good offer that I feel it can stand on its own as a paid offer immediately. And in fact, I invite you to join us. It is such a great time. It takes about 3 hours to participate in this live workshop with us, but you walk away with so much clarity on what the next step should be that you make your investment back in no time. So our next one, I believe, is on September 20th. There's still plenty of time to sign up, but I'll make sure I'll link to it below so that you can get all the information on it. it is one of the best ways to plan your life and business going forward. And it has completely changed the trajectory of my business. And again, one of those things that you see here, one of the benefits from doing this type of planning is that you learn how to make better and faster decisions. And you can then fail fast with a lot of success. In June, I completed 4 projects. My goal has been 3 for the past year. And so I'm still 1 above, which is great. 3 is my sweet spot, so I'm not changing that number. It gives me enough time to complete everything I need to do without compromising how many hours I put in, because I still want to be at around 25 to 30 hours at most per week. So this worked out really well. I was just saying earlier that a lot of the projects I'm currently running are longer, more complicated, and more multi-layered. So it's going to take a little bit more time to complete a lot of them, which is why this number is lower than it normally is. Normally I would complete maybe 6 or 7 or so. Even though my goal is 3, I'm okay. I'm okay doing more, but I don't want to change the goal because I want to make sure that we can fit in a sizable project or 2 along with all of my other commitments without compromising how much time it takes. So these 4 projects that I completed this month were actually quite sizable in terms of energy, just not in time. And that's why I was able to complete all of them while I was on the road. So I think that's a really good reminder. Some projects will be more labor intensive in terms of time. Others will be more labor intensive in terms of energy. And other ones will just cost more overall, but might not take a long time or a lot of your energy. So I think it's really important that we think about project management as balancing a lot of those things. You don't want to put all of your energetic, heavy projects in 1 month, right? You want to space those out and combine them with some that are more costly or less costly, and some that are, less heavy investments of time, for example. So when you get to a point where you're really good at project management, you'll be able to evaluate your projects in the planning phase based on what type of resources you need, right? So you'll be able to see, is this project going to take me a lot of time? Is it going to cost a lot? Is it going to be heavy on my energy? How much do I need to put into this? Do I need a big team? All of those things is what we do in the planning phase. It's what we look at. And then we put that together in the pre-production. So when you know how to do that, that helps you understand how to prioritize, right? Because you don't want to think of each project as living on its own. It's a part of this entire ecosystem with you in the middle. So if you're putting 3 energetically heavy projects in 1 month, you're going to be exhausted. No, we're better off putting those, May, June, July, and splitting them up. You know what I mean? So instead, let's combine it with one that takes more time instead, but maybe is less draining energetically. So you just have to look at the resources available to you and figure out, well, how does all of this fit together? It's like a little puzzle that you have to lay, right? And when you get really good at project management, you can lay that puzzle extremely, extremely well. So again, that's something that I teach a lot of. So, hop on over and join us in the Academy if you want to learn more about project management. It is such a relief to be able to manage what's happening in your life in an efficient way, understanding and knowing what resources it's going to take and eat from your business and from you as a person. A lot of the times, it's not that we can't handle the number of projects that we have on our plate, it's that they take too much of the same resource. So, food for thought, think about that and, manage your projects accordingly. My favorite project this month was rewriting an old course of mine called The Organizing Formula. That has been on my radar for quite some time now to do. And again, talking about how to plan your projects correctly, this was the month to do it because it was basically just writing. It wasn't energetically draining or anything like that. It was just going to take some time to do it. And so I got that done. That's one of the projects I completed, and that was really, really exciting. For the past 8 years or so, that has only existed as a free course for my email list and on my academy. But now with this new update, I think it's time to release it out into the wild. So you're going to hear more about this project in next month's report. But let's just say that my YouTube channel is about to get an upgrade. So you might want to hit that subscribe button if you haven't done that yet. All right, let's talk about hours worked. How much time did I spend working this month? It was a surprise once again. I find that it's really, really important that I actually reflect on this and look at the numbers, because my feelings about how much I worked, it doesn't always add up. Now, that being said, my work is a lot of fun for me. So when I'm having fun, I'm sometimes working, and that throws me off a bit. And that's a place that I'm happy to be at. And, if you're not, let's talk about that, please, because I really want you to be there. But yeah, it's sometimes a little confusing when you look back and you go, I didn't feel like I worked at all. And then turns out you put in a lot of hours. Or like, oh gosh, this month, like I feel like it just took forever. I worked so much. And then maybe you didn't put in the hours. And again, that goes back to what I was talking about with the project planning. Sometimes things don't take a lot of time, but they take a lot of energy and a lot of effort. And that is usually what throws you off. So being able to compromise, being able to plan your projects accordingly to make sure that you have the best combination of projects on your plate, that is a skill worth learning. So with that said, let's talk numbers here. So this month I worked just under 120 hours, and that is close to 30 hours per week. And that's a lot more than I normally clock, right? So how is it that it doesn't feel like I worked a lot? Well, I'll tell you. I did a lot of networking this month, and it was not part of a goal or a project that time. So why would I clock it? Normally I don't. Well, it's because I had this gut feeling, this intuition that I wanted to clock that time spent, because I have a feeling that a few years from now I'm going to see some massive ROI on this trip, and I want to be able to go back and see what was the resources that I put into this trip. So I wanted to have an accurate view, a detailed view about what that looked like, to see how it's going to stack up against that future ROI, right? So when a project at some point materializes, which, spoiler alert, it already has, I want to be able to trace it back to where it originated and see how much effort, how much time, what did I actually put in to get that outcome. And that's one of the ways that I test my intuition, and that's one of the ways I test my decision making. So let's see how that turns out. So that is actually close to 30 hours right there of just networking. So if we take that out, I believe it was 28 point something, right, hours or so, then we're back down to 92 hours, which is a lot more in the normal range for me, right? So it's not necessarily that extra time is what's going to make the difference, but it's what I wanted to track in order to have the data should I need it in the future. I chose to do a lot of networking this month for very specific reasons, and I'm curious to see how that time is going to return itself to me. I think it's going to pay off in spades, but let's see. You're going to hear about that probably in a future report. For sure, I know I have an update for you next month. So it's going to be fun to see just a few months down the road, or even a few years down the road, how this actually turned out, this trip. But, that also brings me to the point that you track your time when you have some intent. So I track my time when it's part of a goal or a project, and I want to see and measure my progress and see how I'm doing, right? Or when there's something like this where I have that gut feeling of like, I wonder if my expectations are going to match up to the outcome and the result that I get from this. So that's why that's in there. So 120 hours this month clocked. Most of them were extremely fun, so it didn't feel heavy at all. And I think it's going to be a huge return on investment for me. Okay, we are here at one of my favorite sections, which is digital images organized. As you probably already know, I am a certified photo organizer and a huge photography fan. I was a photographer for a hot minute back in the early 2000s, and I'm just still obsessed. I take pictures of myself and my friends and my family all the time. They don't always appreciate it as much, but I love it. It's just one of the ways that it's just one of the ways that I can get creative, and I just love it. So yeah, I just have to do it. And this month was a great month in terms of memories. So I took 3,612 photos and videos, and that was due to 2 photo shoots that I did, as well as all the events that I went to and all the people that I saw. There was actually only one day of June that I didn't see anybody, I believe. Every other day I met somebody, either a new connection or an old connection. So I took a lot of pictures, a lot of videos, and we had so much fun. So on the go, while I was, taking them, I deleted about, 1,364. So before I even got home and got to my computer or anything, I was just on my phone deleting some of the blurry ones and some of the mistakes and all of that, just to kind of cull as I'm going, because once you're traveling, you know this probably as much as I do, it eats up memory. And yes, we can sync to the cloud and this and that and save space, but it eats up a lot of storage space. And I just wanted to make sure that I was as streamlined as possible without having to organize anything. So there's more culling to come here. That was just my first pass. I usually do 2 or 3 passes to make sure that I get rid of everything I don't need to keep. But I had so many wonderful photos show up in my archive this month that I'm so happy. One of the biggest questions I get as a photo organizer is, how do you keep your media organized while you're traveling? And the short answer is, you don't have to. It's challenging because there's so much going on, but you're also at the same time bringing in so much new media. So it depends on who you are. Number one, if you're a photographer or a content pro or somebody like that, then you probably need to do some organization as you are going and working, because you probably have clients to deal with, or content to push out or something like that. That's one thing. You have to strategize your project then and how you are going to make those commitments happen. If you are just, your average person on vacation, you're not a pro, but just a lot coming in, you don't actually have to worry about it so much. I would say just make sure you're continuously backed up so that you don't lose your memories, right? So while I was traveling and I was doing a lot on my phone was continuously backing up, and I was very confident that my memories were saved. So that's the biggest thing. I actually decided to wait to organize anything. I didn't do anything in June in terms of that. I just kept them safe so that I can come home then and consolidate and organize when I'm home. I always tell people, having a mess isn't the worst thing. We can always sort out a mess. What's more troubling is when you lose your memories or when you can't go back. So, we can always fix what needs fixing. We can always clean it up. We can always make it prettier, make it nicer, make it more organized. But we can't do anything if you've lost your photos. So make sure that you're safely backed up and you're good to go. Especially if you, like me, have a lot of photos and a lot of content and a lot of media, and you need a little bit more time, or you just need a little bit of a bigger screen in order to see everything. And that kind of brings me to my next point, which is, as with anything, as with any project, you need the right tools for the right job, right? So I love to organize on my big iMac, which is what I'm using right now. First, it has a bigger screen, right? Huge screen, and that helps me see everything better. On my phone, it's a lot harder to see, if somebody's blinking or if the hand is blurry or something else, right? And when I blow it up on my computer, I can see the details so much better. So that helps me get through the culling process a lot faster, and it helps me just pick out the winners and just know exactly what I need to keep. I can also use some of the other tools that I have at my disposal, like Photo Sweeper, which is one of my favorite deduplication programs, right? I can run that so quickly on my big iMac. I can't run that on my phone. So a lot of that final cleanup and then organization happens on my big computer, and I just prefer to do it that way. Since I didn't have access to it on this trip, I decided to wait and just call on the go. And what I got rid of was basically any mistake, anything blurry, any screenshot, things that I just know by looking at it I absolutely do not need. And that still got rid of over 1,300 photos right there. So I got the first pass done. Now that I'm home, there's more to come, and that's fine. In fact, I can't wait to go through all of these things. It's going to be so much fun to look back on all these memories and get them organized. But yeah, I just basically stayed backed up, and that's all that needed to happen. If you'd like to learn more about how to organize digital photos and content, please join us. I have a course called DPO Pro, Ultimate Photo Organizing Masterclass, and it's my best-selling course by far. We teach the entire DPO, digital photo organizing workflow, and we also teach, some of the best programs on the market like Lightroom, Photo Mechanic, and Apple Photos. So version 3 is actually coming out. I'm re-recording a new update for it right now. We're going to have a pre-sale sometime later this fall. So make sure, again, you stay updated, subscribed here to hear more about that, and also subscribe to my email to get all the special offers on that. Okay, moving on to steps walked. How much did I walk in June? I walked a lot, actually. It turned out pretty good. I measured a total of 249,009 steps, almost 250,000 steps. And that comes out to about 9,800 steps a day or so, if my math is correct. And that's, again, no doubt, thanks to being on the move, on the go in Los Angeles. It's funny, but where I am makes such a difference in how active I am. The environment is the number one thing that affects me, and we've seen again and again in these reports that it doesn't matter where I am, but if it is a walkable city and it's the warmer climate, I do a lot better. And I suspect that would be the case for most people, but it really does beg the question of, should I be living where I'm living in order to be my best, most healthiest self? That's another conversation, but it is something important for me to keep thinking about. One thing that I did this month that I haven't done in previous months is I actually decided to look again at the long-term trend. So long-term thinking, long-term decision-making, long-term ROI is sort of the theme here. We're going with, our intuition and facts and all that. So true to this theme, I wanted to see, how is this going overall? Because I've had this step goal in place now for quite a while. How is the first half of this year going? So what I did is I put together the stats for the past 6 months, basically January to June, and I wanted to see, well, look, am I improving overall here? Am I doing worse? Like, which way is this going? And actually, I was pleasantly surprised. It is definitely going in the right direction. I'm getting more and more active, and it's going better and better every single month. I'm talking now about averages, right? So not necessarily the individual days, because there are certain days where it's like pouring rain and I don't do anything. And then there are days where it's like sunny and amazing and I'm traveling and I'm outside and I clock like 30,000 steps and it doesn't affect me at all. So we're talking about averages. But the big picture told me that basically my trend is going in a positive, upright direction. I am getting better and better at clocking 5,000 steps plus per day, which is the goal. And so I can be very, very happy with that result. And if you actually hop over and read the full productivity report, you'll see the graph that I have for it. It's funny because you can clearly tell when I'm in a walkable city versus when I'm not, but overall it's still going in the right direction. I've said this many times, the weather has a huge effect on my activities. And if you want to hear more about that, go back and look at November's report when I was in India. That was an eye-opener for sure. And what I want to watch out for now is as the weather gets colder and I do maybe less and less travel, is the graph going to reverse itself? Is it gonna bring the step count back down? So that's what I'm watching for now. We'll see at the end of the year how that's going to turn out. It's going to be very curious to see. The goal is obviously to not have that happen, but we're going to find out. Overall, though, so far, the year has been going great. The trend is positive, and I'm happy with that. I'm starting to get better at staying above 5,000 steps per day. And I think with a bit more tenacity and a bit more practice, I'm going to be consistently over that line. All right, home cooked meals. This category was a bit more of an ouch in June. I got in at 56.2%, and the goal is 75%. So that was kind of an epic fail. However, it was an epic fail on purpose. And let me explain what that means. So, in true long-term fashion, especially with health goals, it's the big picture that matters, right? You're always going to have weeks, sometimes even a month or two, where it really dips. But what we have to do is make sure it comes back to normal over time, right? So it's okay to have dips. It's okay to have low points. But what you want to watch for is that you don't stay in that dip, right? We have to bring it back up again. And so that's what I looked at this month. I could anticipate that this was going to be a tricky month because, again, I was on the go. I did have Airbnbs with full kitchens, but I opted to eat out quite a bit. And the reason for that is because I needed to save a bit of money. This was going to be a very expensive trip, and I wanted to make sure that I kept it down as much as possible. And you might ask, well, wait a minute, isn't eating out, by default more expensive? Actually, in LA, not necessarily. It depends on where you're eating. And there are some great restaurants there that have very budget-friendly big portions. So I took advantage of some of that and had 2 or 3 meals in one, basically, for the price of one, I should say. And it came out to be a lot cheaper than actually cooking. In the past, I've made the mistake of buying way too many groceries and then not using them up, before I had to move to the next town. So I wanted to kind of avoid that. I still had basic stuff, in the Airbnb, like breakfast and all that, but usually lunch or dinner, I would eat out and then get a very budget-friendly meal that could last me with some leftovers. So that actually worked out okay, and I did that on purpose. So I knew this was not going to be a great month in terms of home-cooked meals. And you have to make those trade-offs. Sometimes you just have to, especially when you're implementing a new habit or you're upgrading a habit or you're putting in some sort of new routine, there's always these variables that you have to look at and consider. And in my case, I reverted to a more flexible goal here. I was like, you know what, June is going to be a wash. That's okay. It's a wash that I've made with intention. I know the consequences, and when I'm back home, we're going to get back on track again. I'm still going to choose healthy, affordable meals. Not going to eat junk. It did happen once or twice, but nothing major, right? So it was more of a compromise. And so since that was a conscious decision, I have to be okay with a 56% result. I'm in fact surprised that it was that high. I would have guessed 40 myself, but yeah. It just kind of goes to show that flexible goal setting sometimes is better when it comes to health goals. And if you're going to make decisions, you kind of have to be okay with the consequences and the results of those decisions. And that's what happened this month. We're going to see how July turned out next month. Probably going to be around the same, but I suspect that August is going to look a lot better. We're going to get back on track then. All right, on to books and learning. This month I listened to the audiobook version of The Long Game by Dory Clark. No surprise there. The theme was the long game, even though I had chosen this book before the theme came together. Isn't that funny? But it's amazing how timely that was of a listen. I haven't had the pleasure of getting to know Dory directly. Hi, Dory, if you're watching. Great book. We do have mutual friends, though, And Talal, my friend, shout out to you, Talal, if you're watching as well. He had both of us, I think, as profiles in his book, which is called Turbocharged Networking. So we have some mutual connections and similar interests and all of that. And I actually found myself reading this book or listening to this book and thinking, wow, we think so much alike. I could have written this book. This is pretty much exactly what I would say if I were to say it. Obviously, Dory's a lot more experienced than me, but we have such similar thought processes and similar attitudes towards life and towards the long game and playing the long game that I really, really enjoyed this read. She touches a lot on, career waves and learning, creating, connecting with people, and then reaping the rewards of that, which is, again, was a very timely topic for me. And basically, that's the same as the production cycle that I teach in Mindful Monday Mapping. So no wonder it resonated so much with me, right? Another thing that I really enjoyed about this book is she talked a lot about your contact network, basically the people around you, and how long it takes to develop those relationships. So she had some really interesting stats. She said that it takes about 50 hours to go from acquaintance to friend, which was actually faster than I thought. But I guess it depends on how you define friend. So a good enough friend. And then she said that it takes about another 90 hours or so to go to real close friends. So 90 plus 50 would be the math there, right? And then if you want to go to really close, it's another 200 plus hours beyond that. So I guess 340, 350 hours or so overall to go from acquaintance to really, really close friends. And I just found that such an interesting statistic and a very helpful statistic because I'm such a outgoing, I feel like, yes, I'm introverted, but I'm an outgoing and friendly person, and I have no trouble making friends with people very quickly. But I also have to make sure that I don't come on too strong, and that I give other people a chance to respond, right? I trust people so quickly, immediately. I always feel like people have, the best intentions at heart. I assume everybody's a great person and want the best for everybody, and sometimes that gets me in trouble. But I just give everybody the benefit of the doubt until they prove otherwise. And so it was really interesting for me to see, like, okay, whoa, I'm actually really fast at that. I get to a place where I trust people completely much faster than 50 hours for sure. Should I be doing that? It takes time to get to know somebody. You have to develop trust and loyalty and genuine care, and I feel like I have a lot of that to give very quickly. But that was an interesting thing for me to see, that things take time and it's okay to let it take its time too. So it's a very, very good read. I would highly recommend it. One of my favorite quotes that stood out was, "We overestimate what we can do in a day, but we underestimate what we can do in a year." And I thought that was such a good quote, especially for me as a productivity coach. So thank you, Dory, for that. I will make sure you link that book below. I highly recommend that you pick it up. The long game is where it's at. That's what I'm doing here. That's why these productivity reports exist, and that's why I would highly recommend you read this book. I had so many meaningful conversations during the month of June. I can't even count them all. So thank you to everybody who spent time with me in person. I really enjoyed your company, and I had some really great takeaways from talking to all of you, and it was just so much fun. So I can't possibly name everybody. I think I saw new people almost every day, and all of those conversations were amazing. So I'm just going to focus on the ones I did remotely, because I did do 3 remotely as a part of my Fika with Caroline catch-ups. And that's basically where I invite people on my mailing list to jump on a quick call with me just for fun and share a cup of tea. And we had some very familiar faces this month. I spoke with Bruce. Shout out to you, Bruce, if you're watching. He was a student in my Searching Sweden course, and so we talked about family history, and that was great. And then I talked with Lita, who's one of my dear colleagues here in Chicago. We talked a lot about animals and traveling and all of that, which was really nice to, often as colleagues, we talk business, and we don't get to know each other on a personal level as much, and it was nice to kind of have that time with her. Same thing with Dion. Shout out to you, Dion, as well, if you're watching. We talked about Montana. She was going to go to Montana for an event, and I was saying how I'd never been there, and that's on the bucket list for sure. So yeah, it's fun to talk on a more personal note with people that you've known for a long time, but maybe haven't known as well for a long time. So that was really fun. Yeah, I always enjoy catching up with people, and all the conversations I had in June were definitely meaningful. Hop on over to the blog if you want to see the photos. We always take a little screenshot. Apparently I have one look in those photos, and it's kind of funny to see how consistent I am with that. But yeah, all of the links are below as well. So if you want to share some time with me on a call and have a cup of tea, make sure you sign up for my mailing list. Okay, on to success for the month of June. This one is personal. Normally I shout out colleagues and friends, but this month I want to shout out me because I noticed something about myself while I was in California that had a big impact on me. I reflected a lot on how I show up, and I realized that I am now able to walk into pretty much any situation in any room without feeling awkward. I feel like I can spend time now with pretty much anybody with complete confidence in myself and how I show up. And I feel like I belong no matter where I go. And that's pretty huge. So for many years, I had this default stance of inferiority, meaning that I was really afraid, I guess, to take up space. I didn't want to be in anybody's way. And somehow other people's thoughts and needs and opinions, all of that stuff was way more important than mine, just by default. So I wouldn't speak up. I would forfeit my turn to do things and say, oh, I don't need that. I wouldn't bother to do a lot of things. And because I didn't speak up a lot, people would often mistake me for shy, which is so annoying because I'm not shy at all. Those of you who know me know that I love to be on stage. Like, I love to perform. I actually love to be loud, but for some reason I didn't allow myself to be that. And now a lot of that has changed. And, you know, there are a lot of people who I can thank for helping me get to that point. You know who you are, so thank you. But it was interesting to see how it just kind of hit home this month that, oh yeah, I can walk into any room now and I'm good. I'm able to speak my mind. I'm able to participate. I'm able to feel like I belong and to feel like my voice is just as important as anybody else's. That's huge. I mean, huge. It's taken a lot of personal development to get to this point, but we're here now. And it's an amazing place to be. It really is. So in hindsight, I feel like I had a really bad attitude, but it obviously came from somewhere. And I've now been able to sort that out. And I can now move forward with a better attitude. So it's all about just kind of looking at yourself and seeing that, okay, no, something needs to change here. How can I make that change happen? And actually taking the steps and taking the action and getting to that place. So we're here now, and I'm actually really proud of myself. So I want to say that, and I want to celebrate the fact that I'm here and that I feel like my voice and my message is just as valid as anybody else's. When you notice little things like that about yourself, you know, it feels almost like a 180, right? Take note of that, because that means that something fundamental in you has shifted, and that deserves to be celebrated more than any work project, right? Because it's going to lead you to different opportunities and down a different path in life. So if that's something that you need help with, please message me and I can give you the resources that have been helpful to me. But yeah, let's celebrate and let's make sure that we're the absolute best version of ourselves. I feel that at this point, obviously there's still way more work to be done, but this is one of those things that I'm extremely proud of myself for, and I want to celebrate that this month. Okay, here we are at the end almost already. That went pretty fast, right? It's time for tea of the month, and the one I want to highlight this month is called Decaf Assam. It's by Harney and Sons. So, for those of you who don't know, Assam tea comes from India. It is a black tea, and it is extremely strong. And they use it over there a lot of the time to make chai, and it's fantastic. It's very full body, and it's got a lot of caffeine though. So I have found that Harney and Sons have a fantastic version that's actually decaf, and that has allowed me to make homemade chai that tastes almost exactly the same without a ton of caffeine. So I want to shout out Harney and Sons. You know I'm a big fan of yours. You have great products, and your decaf Assam tea is literally a lifesaver. Normally, when I drink too much black tea, I get so hyper. There's so much caffeine. I get very dehydrated very fast. And with this one, I'm able to actually make a lot of chai and have a lot of cups of chai without having that problem. So thank you, Harney and Sons, for such a great product. I'm going to link to it below, and I hope you try it. At some point, I'm going to put my homemade chai recipe in here as well, so you'll see that. But for now, let's start with the foundation. Thank you so much for watching this report till the end. Before I wrap up, I just want to say that you have to measure what matters. So obviously, my goals are mine and mine alone. Just because I measure something does not mean you have to measure it. Just because I have one goal does not mean you have to have that same goal. All of our goals are independent of each other's. We are all working towards different things with different ideas, different people, different outcomes. And so, what I want you to do is focus on your goals and measure what matters to you. Okay? Just because I measure my steps or my home cooked meals does not mean you have to do that. If it's part of your goal as well, by all means, please take some notes from how I do things, but focus on what matters to you. Now, if you don't know what matters to you, please join us. We have quarterly planning workshops coming up, and anybody's welcome to join us from anywhere, regardless of what type of business you run. So I will have that link for you below, and I look forward to seeing you in planning mode. That's all for this month. As usual, I have a lot more over on the blog, so hop over there for the full report. But with that, I'm going to wrap this video, and I hope to see you again for July's report next month.